Good morning, fourth graders. Today is Thursday, April 23rd, 2020. And we are going into chapter 12 on the city of Ember, remembering back to some of the things that have happened on our story. Don't forget that Dune and Lizzie switched jobs. Dune wanted to get to the generator because he thinks there's a way to understand electricity that he can save the city and save the generator. Also, don't forget that Lena wanted to be a messenger. Lately, they had found a locked off storage room down in the pipeworks. And then Lena runs into Lizzie, and Lizzie drops a bag, and inside the bag are cans of applesauce and peaches and creamed corn and things that some of the things Lizzie had never, or Lena had never even seen before, let alone eaten. And she confronts Lizzie about where did she get this, and somebody, Looper, was stealing from the storerooms. But interestingly enough, nobody knew that any of that stuff was even around. All right, so chapter 12 is called A Dreadful Discovery. About a week after he and Lena had seen the man come out of the mysterious door, Dune was assigned to fix a clog in Tunnel 207. It turned out to be easy. He undid the pipe, rammed a long, thin brush down it, and a jet of water spurted into his face. Once he'd put the pipe back together, he had nothing else to do, so he decided to go out to Tunnel 351 and take another look around at that locked door. It was strange, he thought, that no announcement about a way out of Ember had come. Maybe that door had not been what they had thought it was. So he set out for the south end of the pipeworks. When he came to the roped-off passage in Tunnel 351, he ducked in and walked along through the dark, feeling his way. He was pretty sure the door would be locked as usual. His mind on other things, of course. He was thinking of his green worm, which had been behaving oddly, refusing to eat and hanging out in the side of its box with its chin tucked in. And he was thinking about Lena, whom he hadn't seen for several days. He wondered where she was. When he came to the door, he reached absently for the knob, and what he felt startled him so much that he snatched his hand back as if he'd been stung. He felt again carefully. There was a key in the lock in that door. For a moment, Dune stood as still as a statue. Then he took hold of the doorknob and turned it very slowly. He pushed on the door. It swung inward without a sound. He opened it only a few inches, just enough to peer around the edge, and what he saw made him gasp. There was no road, or a passage, or a stairway behind the door. Instead, there was a brightly lit room, whose size he could not guess is because it was so crowded with things. On all sides were crates and boxes, sacks and bundles and packages. There were mounds of cans, heaps of clothes, rows of jars and bottles, stacks of light bulb packages. Piles rose to the low ceiling and leaned against the walls, blocking all but a small space right smack in the center. And in that small space, a little living room had been set up. There was a greenish rug, and on the rug an armchair and a table, and on the table were dishes smeared with the remains of food. And in the armchair, facing Dune, was a great blob of a person whose head was flopped backward so that all Dune could see of it was an upthrust chin. The blob stirred and muttered, and Dune, in the second before he stepped back and pulled the door closed, caught a glimpse of a fleshy ear, a slab of gray cheek, and a loose, purplish mouth. That day, Lena had more message to carry than ever. There had been 5 blackouts in a row during the week, and they were all fairly short. The longest was 4.5 minutes, but Lena had heard there had never been so many so close together, though. Everyone was nervous. Everyone was scared. People who might ordinarily walk to someone's house were sending messages instead now, and often they didn't even come out into the street but beckoned to a messenger from their doorway. By 5 o'clock, Lena had carried 39 messages. 39 messages. Most of them were more or less the same. I'm not coming to the meeting tonight, decided to stay home. I won't be in work tomorrow. Instead of meeting me in Cloven Square, why don't you come to my house? The citizens of Ember were hunkering down, burrowing in. Fewer people stood around talking in groups under the lights in the squares. Instead, they would pause briefly to murmur a few words to each other and then hasten onward. Lena was on her way home to Mrs. Murdo's. She and Poppy had moved in with all their things when she heard rapid footsteps behind her. Startled, she turned and saw Dune running toward her. At first, he was so out of breath he couldn't speak. "What is it? What is it?" asked Lena. The door, he panted, the door. In 351, I opened it. Lena's heart leaped. You did what? Dune nodded. Is it the way out? Lena asked fiercely. No, said Dune. He glanced behind him, clutching Lena's arm. He pulled her into a shadowy spot on the street. It doesn't lead out of Ember, he whispered. It leads to a big room. Lena's face fell. A room? What? What's in that? What's in there? Everything, Dune said. Food, clothes, boxes, cans, light bulbs, stacks of them, everything. Piles and piles up to the ceiling. His eyes grew wide, and someone was there in the middle of it all, sound asleep. Who? Asked Lena. A look of horror passed over Dune's face. It was the mayor. The mayor was sitting in the room. He was conked out in a big armchair with an empty plate sitting in his lap. The mayor? Lena whispered. Yes, the mayor has a secret treasure room hidden in the pipeworks. They stared at each other, speechless. Then Dune suddenly stamped hard on the pavement, his face flushed red. That's the solution he keeps telling us about. It's a solution for him, not the rest of us. He gets everything he needs, and we get nothing but leftovers. He doesn't care about the city. All he cares about is his big fat stomach. Lena felt dizzy, as if she'd been hit on the head. What will we do? She couldn't think. She was so stunned. Tell everyone, said Dune. Everyone. He was shaking with anger. Tell the whole city the mayor is robbing us. Wait. Lena put a hand on Dune's arm and concentrated for a minute. Come on, she said at last. Let's go sit Harkin Square. I have something to tell you, too. At the north end of Harkin Square stood a circle of believers, clapping their hands and singing one of their songs. Lately, they seemed to be singing more loudly and cheerfully than ever. Their voices were shrill. Coming to save us, they wailed. Happy, happy day. Near the gathering hall steps, something unusual was happening. 20 or so people were pacing around and around, carrying big signs painted on old planks and on big banners made of sheets. The sign said, What solutions, Mayor Cole? And We want answers. Every now and then, the demonstrators would yell these slogans out loud. Lena wondered if the mayor was paying any attention at all. Dune and Lena found an empty bench on the south side of Harkin Square and sat down. Now listen, said Lena. I am, said Dune, though his face was still red and the look on his face was stormy. I saw Lizzie coming out of the storerooms yesterday, Lena said. She told him about the cans and Lizzie's new friend Looper and what Looper was doing. Dune pounded his fist on his leg. That's 2 of them doing it then, he said. Wait, said Lena, there's more. Remember how I thought there was something familiar about the man who came out that door? I remembered what. It was that way he walked, sort of dipping over sideways, and also that black hair all unbrushed and sticking out. I've seen him twice. I don't know why I didn't remember who it was right away, maybe because I've only seen him from the front, but I took a message for him on that very first day. Dune was jiggling with impatience. Well, who was it? Who was it? It was Looper. Looper, who works in the storerooms, Lizzie's boyfriend, and Dune. Lena leaned forward. It was a message to the mayor he gave me. It said, delivery at 8 o'clock. Dune's mouth dropped open. That means he's taking things from the storeroom for the mayor, and he's giving some to Lizzie and selling some in his store. What? Cried Dune. He slapped his hand against his head. Why didn't I get it before? There's a hatch in the ceiling near tunnel 351. It must go right up into the storerooms. Looper comes through there. That's what we heard that day, remember? A sort of scraping? That would have been the hatch opening. And then the thud, his sack of stuff dropping through, and then a sound like someone jumping down and landing hard on the ground. And then walking slowly, Lena said. Because he was carrying a load, Dune said. And walking quickly on the way out because he'd left it all for the mayor. Lena took a deep breath. Her heart was drumming and her hands were cold. We have to think what to do, she said. If this was an ordinary situation, the mayor would be the one to tell. But the mayor is the one committing the crime, said Dune. So then we've got to tell the guards, I said. There's next in authority is the mayor, right? Though I don't like him much, she added, remembering how she'd been so roughly hustled down the stairs from the roof of the gathering hall. I don't especially like that chief guard. But you're right, Dune said. We should tell the guards. They'll go down into the pipeworks and see for themselves that we're telling the truth. We have to. Then they can arrest the mayor and have all the stuff put back on the storerooms, and then they can tell the city what's been going on. I like that idea, said Lena. Much better. Then you and I can get back to what's important. What? Dune said. Figuring out those instructions. Now that we know that the door we found wasn't the right one, we have to find the right one. I don't know, said Dune. We might be all wrong about those instructions. They could just be about some old pipework's tool chest. He made a sour face. Instructions for Egriston? Who's Egriston? What's Egrisman? Whoever it was. Why couldn't he have been just an unspecially stupid pipeworks guy who needed instructions to find his way around? He shook his head. I don't know, Lena. I think maybe those instructions might just be hogwash. Hogwash, said Lena. What does that mean? It means nonsense. I read it in a book in the library. But they can't be nonsense, Dune. Why would they have been kept in a box like that, with a strange lock on it? But Dune didn't want to think about the instructions right then. Oh, we'll figure it out tomorrow, he said. Right now, we've got to find the guards. Wait, said Lena, wait, catching hold of his sleeve of his jacket. I have one more thing to tell you. What? Dune said. My grandma died. Oh, Dune's face fell out. That's so sad. I'm so sorry. His sympathy made tears spring to Lena's eyes, and Dune looked startled for a moment, and then he took a step toward her and wrapped his arms around her. He gave her a squeeze so quick and tight that it made her cough, and then it made her laugh. She realized all at once that Dune, thin, dark-eyed Dune, with his troublesome temper and his terrible brown jacket and his good heart, was the person that she knew better than anyone now. He was now her best friend. That's where we'll stop. All right, do a few prodigies, maybe some spelling practice if you want to. Read. Catch up if you haven't caught up. And we will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.